Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today, once again, I am going to be taking a look at another 2021 release, this time from bandleader, composer, arranger and orchestrator Vince Mendoza, who has collaborated with some of the most important bands and figures in the history of music, from Antonio Sanchez to Joni Mitchell to Gregory Porter to Luciana Souza, to the Yellowjackets, to Fred Hersch, to Jim Beard, to John Scofield, to John Abercrombie, to name a few. And this is his latest album for the Modern Recordings label, and this is Freedom Over Everything, which features the Czech National Symphony Orchestra, and this features some of the biggest names who are featured here as soloists, and they are Blackthorpe, Julia Bullock, Jan Hassanhori, Derek Hodge, Joshua Redman and Antonio Sanchez. So, as I mentioned already, this is Vince Mendoza's latest album for the Modern Recordings label. And one thing about Vince Mendoza, you know straight away it's him because he has a very unique way and sound of orchestrating all of his music. And Vince Mendoza's music is kind of like a cross between jazz, big band and classical music all rolled into one, and it sounds lovely. All of his albums are well produced, well written, well orchestrated, and the production, of course, is, as you'd expect, top notch and extremely slick. And Vince Mendoza, one thing about him, his music is very cinematic, which is no surprise because a lot of his music is very heavy orchestrated, and he always gets the best soloists to play on his pieces. So this album has 9 tracks, and we've got a 5-part suite called the Concerto for Orchestra, which has Part 1, American Noise, Part 2, Consolation, Part 3, Hit the Streets, Part 4, Meditation, Part 5, Justice and the Blues, and we've got Freedom Over Everything, which is the title track, and then we've got the Concerto for Orchestra, which is the finale, and then we got To the Edge of Longing and New York Stories. A very lovely album, and in my opinion, one of Vince Mendoza's absolute best. So we've got 2 tracks, we've got a speaking track and a vocal track, and we've got the list of musicians who are featured as soloists on his pieces. And we've got a little bit about each track individually, and of course we've got all the credits of who plays on the orchestra. Now, apart from one track, which I would probably say is the clunker, it's a good track, but there's a little bit of rapping which I could probably do without. But if you take that track away, this is still a fantastic and very beautiful recording. So Antonio Sanchez, as I mentioned, is featured on this album, and Vince Mendoza and Antonio Sanchez collaborated together on Antonio Sanchez's double album called Channels of Energy, and Antonio Sanchez plays a very big role on this album. He's featured very heavy on drums throughout, and his playing is showcased to the fullest, so he plays a very big role on this album. And we've also got musicians such as Paul Jackson Jr., who plays guitar. We've got Tom Walsh, Alexej Rozik, and Oleg Sologov. And we've also got Jan Hassanhori on trumpet. So there's some big names who are featured as soloists on this album. So standout tracks for me are Part 1 of the Concerto for Orchestra, American Noise, Part 2, Consolation, Hit the Streets, and Meditation, To the Edge of Longing, and the long track on this album, New York Stories, which clocks in at 15 minutes, and this is like the longest track of the entire album. And some of these tracks are quite long here. New York Stories is 15 minutes long, To the Edge of Longing is 8 minutes, and Concerto for Orchestra Part 2, Consolation is like 5 minutes, and then we've got American Noise, which is like 9 minutes. So there's some pretty long tracks on this album. But in my opinion, those are the standout tracks, and you can't go wrong with Vince Mendoza. All of his albums are just very well written and very well produced and well recorded. So there you have it. Vince Mendoza, Freedom Over Everything, and in my opinion, a very strong contender for album of 2021. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite track on Vince Mendoza Freedom Over Everything? Is it American Noise? Is it Constellation? Is it Hit the Streets? Is it Meditation? Justice and the Blues? Or is it Finale? Or is it To the Edge of Longing? Or is it the New York Stories? There's no right or wrong answer. We all have our favourite tracks, as we all know. You know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, thanks for listening.